December 1993. Outside Centrepoint homeless shelter in central London. Paparazzi lenses glinting in the rain. Security detail tensing. Crowd of 200 pressing closer. Princess Diana steps from the royal car, and her bodyguard reaches for her elbow. Protocol is clear. Never touch the public directly in uncontrolled settings. But she sees him anyway. Homeless man in his 50s, sitting on the wet pavement, soaked through. Someone hands her an umbrella. She kneels beside him in the rain, holds it over his head, not hers. The crowd goes silent. Her navy cashmere coat, worn to 14 secret shelter visits over 18 months, is getting soaked, but she doesn't move. When she leans closer, her sleeve rides up. There's a hospital bracelet on her wrist. August 1993, admitted for exhaustion. The bracelet reveals something the palace spent months hiding. Princess Diana has been living a double life, and it's been destroying her. By early 1991, Diana was already the world's most photographed woman. Landmine campaigns, AIDS hospital visits, every move documented. But there was another Diana, one the cameras never caught. She'd been visiting homeless shelters alone since January 1990, slipping out of Kensington Palace in that navy coat while her security detail believed she was at the gym. The coat became her civilian disguise, expensive enough to pass in royal circles, but anonymous enough to disappear in London's East End. She kept it in her car trunk, beneath the formal wardrobe, folded carefully so the palace staff wouldn't question the smell. Cigarette smoke, soup kitchen steam, rain. People close to her would later say she needed this secret more than she needed her title. Fame is the world's best disguise for who you really are. What came next would prove exactly how far she'd go to protect it. January 1990, Passage Day Center in Victoria. Diana's first unauthorized visit. She removed her jewelry in the car, wore the navy coat, brought no security. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over rows of plastic chairs. She met Eddie, veteran, 62, living rough for 8 years. He didn't recognize her immediately, too focused on the soup she was serving, her hands visibly shaking as she poured. "You all right, love?" he asked. She nodded, kept serving. They talked for 20 minutes. He told her about Falklands, about losing his flat, about sleeping in doorways. She listened without the royal mask, just listened. 2 weeks later, she read about it in the Times. Eddie Thompson, 62, found dead from hypothermia behind Victoria Station. The article was 4 sentences long. She kept the clipping in her coat pocket for 3 years. One conversation can haunt you forever. That night, she drove back to the shelter. This time, she brought socks. Between 1991 and 1992, Diana visited 3 to 4 shelters monthly. The palace believed she was at private appointments, therapy, gym sessions, friends. The navy coat became a signal to shelter staff, she's here. She learned names, brought thermal socks, returned to the same people week after week. In her coat pocket, a small notebook, 47 names written inside, people she'd met, people she wanted to find again. By late 1992, paparazzi photographed her leaving London's East End near midnight. The photo was blurry, dismissed as a look-alike. Palace press office confirmed Princess Diana was attending a private function in Mayfair. The function was a shelter in Whitechapel. She'd served dinner to 18 people, stayed until closing. The coat smelled like industrial cleaner and cigarette smoke. She hung it carefully in her closet, wore it again 3 days later. The truth hides best in plain sight. Nobody was looking at the coat. They should have been. Late 1992, a tabloid journalist started noticing patterns. Same navy coat appearing in locations that didn't match palace schedules. He cross-referenced timestamps. Palace statements said private appointments, but witnesses placed her in rough neighborhoods: King's Cross, Whitechapel, Brixton. He built a wall in his flat, map of London, red pins marking every sighting. 47 pins by December. He pitched the story to his editor, Princess Diana's Secret Life. The editor killed it within an hour. Palace pressure, he said, but it was more than that. Nobody wanted to believe the story. A princess sneaking into homeless shelters? Sounded like tabloid fantasy. The journalist kept the map. Some secrets are protected by everyone who benefits from the lie. 3 months later, Diana would make those red pins look like amateur detective work. What she was really doing made his investigation look like a treasure hunt with a child's map. August 1993. Diana admitted to a private hospital in London. Public diagnosis: exhaustion. Real reason: panic attacks from living a double life for 3 years. She wore the navy coat into the hospital. Odd choice for admission, but photographers caught it anyway. The coat appeared in every photo. Diana emerging from the car, Diana entering the building, Diana's silhouette behind tinted glass. After discharge, she kept the hospital bracelet in her coat pocket. It became her reminder: this is what hiding costs. The plastic band still smelled like antiseptic. She'd lost 9 pounds in 2 weeks, couldn't sleep, couldn't maintain the performance anymore. Her body kept score when her mind pretended everything was fine. The palace issued a statement about stress and rest. They didn't mention she'd visited 4 shelters the week before admission. The coat hung in her closet for 3 weeks before she wore it again. September 1993. A royal aide loyal to Charles noticed something in shelter staff photos posted in a charity newsletter. That coat. Same navy coat with the worn elbows, the specific brass buttons. The aide started documenting Diana's movements. File folder labeled Unauthorized Departures, 1993. Car logs, security gaps, timeline discrepancies. By October, the pattern was undeniable. Diana had spent her 32nd birthday at a homeless shelter, not at the spa the palace announced. The aide presented the file to Charles's private secretary. Charles was told everything. His response, according to people close to him at the time, let her embarrass herself. But that wasn't the calculation. This was about ammunition, documentation, evidence of instability. Loyalty to truth and loyalty to power rarely align. The aide kept building the file. By November, it was 3 inches thick. Diana knew nothing about it. She was too focused on a man named John. November 1993. Diana learned from shelter staff that a homeless man, they called him John, would freeze that night. Weather forecast showed the coldest temperatures in a decade. Every shelter bed in central London was full. She was supposed to attend a humanitarian awards ceremony at Royal Albert Hall that evening. She wore the navy coat to the event, already planning to leave early. In her purse, a coat check ticket she'd never use. The ceremony went exactly as scripted: standing ovation, speech about compassion, photographs with dignitaries. Charles stood beside her, distant, already living a separate life. At 9:30, during the reception, she slipped out a side entrance. Her driver was waiting. "Victoria Station," she said. "The moment you choose is the moment you become." She'd been choosing for 3 years. Tonight, 200 people would watch her choose again, and this time, cameras would catch everything. 10 p.m. Diana's car pulled up near Victoria Station. She found John quickly, mid-50s, shivering near the entrance, hypothermia already setting in. A crowd started gathering immediately. People recognized her now, even without the tiara. She was still wearing her evening dress under the navy coat. Car headlights illuminated the scene as she knelt beside him. Her security detail reached for her, tried to pull her back to the car. She stayed. Under her coat sleeve, the hospital bracelet was still there. She'd never removed it. That bracelet and this coat had become the same thing, proof that she was breaking under the weight of 2 lives. John looked up at her, confused. "You're—" he started. "I know," she said. Compassion looks like weakness until it becomes your only strength. What happened next would break royal protocol so completely that the palace would spend weeks trying to explain it. Diana removed the navy coat. Rain was pouring. She placed it over John, wrapped it around his shoulders. The crowd, now over 200 people, went completely silent. She knelt there in her evening dress, tiara still in her hair, diamond earrings catching streetlight. Someone offered her an umbrella. She refused. For 4 minutes, nobody moved. Paparazzi were present, cameras ready, but nobody took a photo. Not immediately. Even they understood they were watching something beyond the usual royal theater. This was different. The coat draped over John looked wrong and right at the same time. A 4,000-pound cashmere coat covering a man who owned nothing. Diana stayed beside him, rain soaking through her dress. Someone in the crowd finally called an ambulance. Dignity silences noise. When the sirens started approaching, her security detail moved in again. This time, she had a response ready. "I'm staying until he's safe." The ambulance arrived. Paramedics assessed John. Severe hypothermia, early stages. Diana insisted on riding with him. Hospital staff at St. Thomas's were shocked when she walked through emergency room doors in an evening gown, soaking wet, no coat. John was placed on a gurney, blood pressure cuff wrapped over Diana's navy coat, still covering him. As paramedics worked, John spoke for the first time clearly. "Eddie was my brother." Diana froze. Eddie Thompson, the veteran from Passage Day Center, January 1990. The first person she'd served soup to. The first person she'd failed. John had recognized her the moment she knelt down. He'd been looking for her for 3 years, heard stories about a woman in a navy coat visiting shelters. The dead connect us to the living we're meant to help. She stayed with John until he was stable, then called the palace. They needed to prepare for what was coming. By morning, photos hit every newspaper in Britain. Princess gives coat off her back. Front pages showed Diana kneeling in the rain, tiara and evening dress, coat draped over a homeless man. The palace was furious. Charles demanded an explanation in writing. Diana's response shocked everyone. She released a full list of 73 secret shelter visits over 3 years, names, dates, locations. The palace had no choice but to frame it as a humanitarian initiative they'd quietly supported. Public reaction was unprecedented. 92% approval rating, spike within 48 hours. The photo of Diana without her coat became the image of the year, more powerful than any official portrait. Embarrassment to the crown becomes pride of the nation. But the palace knew what Diana was really doing. She'd just made herself untouchable. Charles couldn't criticize her charity work without looking heartless. She'd won a battle he didn't know they were fighting. The personal cost came fast. By December 1993, Diana's marriage was effectively over. Charles moved out permanently. John returned her navy coat 3 weeks later, professionally cleaned, with a handwritten thank you note pinned to the collar. She hung it in her closet and never wore it again. Couldn't. The coat had become something else, transformed from secret disguise to public symbol. In early 1994, she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Years of hiding, performing, splitting herself between two identities had damaged her more than she'd known. Then came the final blow. She discovered she was pregnant in January 1994, miscarried 2 weeks later. Doctors linked it to chronic stress. The coat hung in her closet, untouched, a reminder of what the double life had cost. Saving others doesn't always mean saving yourself. She'd saved John, she'd exposed her secret, but she'd lost almost everything else. Between 1994 and 1997, Diana's homeless advocacy became her primary focus. The secrecy was gone. Now she visited shelters openly, brought cameras, made it official. The navy coat was displayed at a charity auction in 1995, raising £38,000. Centrepoint shelter bought it, placed it in their museum. When Diana died in August 1997, the coat became a memorial symbol. Thousands visited to see it, touch the glass case, remember the night she gave it away. The museum card read, "Worn by Princess Diana during 73 secret visits, 1990 to 1993. John attended her funeral, wearing a donated coat that saved his life that December night. He stood in the crowd outside Westminster Abbey, silent among millions. The coat in the museum remained pristine, preserved, but the real weight of it, the cigarette smoke, the rain, the secrets, was gone. The warmth you give away is the only warmth that lasts.